Hello everybody, Namaste. Today we're going to be looking at the basics of post-processing. A lot of people ask me, why do you need to post-process your images? According to me, there are basically two reasons. One is the camera can't see the dynamic range that our eye can see. Second point, typically we shoot in RAW. So when you shoot in RAW, you have to post-process a little bit. Let's look at the first point. What is this dynamic range? Assume that there is this spectrum, like from the blackest of blacks to the whites, right? Our eye can see pretty much of the dynamic range. While every camera manufacturer, when they decide to take a position with the sensors, they choose a part of this dynamic range, right? So if we need to make it look realistic, right? For example, you go on a holiday and you look at this beautiful landscape, beautiful colors, the light is perfect, but when you take a picture, you typically shot it in RAW or something like that, and you come back home and you upload it to the computer, and then you realize, what is this? Why is it so dull? Or the foreground is totally in the shade or in the darkness, and while the highlights sometimes will be totally blown out. You'd have seen a beautiful twilight sky, but then in the pictures it'd be like washed out. So what we can actually do in Photoshop, Lightroom, or any of the photo editing tools is that you can actually pull out the details from the shadow area and details from the highlight area and make it look close to what our eye would have seen. uh, you know I think that's what photography is all about. For me, at least, I like to make the pictures look as realistic as possible. Uh, Second reason being, when you shoot in RAW, typically, the camera does not put its layers of enhancements on it. Like, there are a lot of light enhancements that you can actually do. On a Nikon, for example, you have something called a D-lighting, and on a Canon there's something called auto light optimizer or something like that. So JPEG is already compressed and you're running all these things, it just destroys the image, and even in post-processing you can't do anything to it. But if you shoot in RAW, it might look a little soft. The sharp details in the picture might look a little soft, but then in post processing you can do magic, right? You can run sharpness tools, you can pull out details, because it has so much of information, it carries so much of information in the file. You can enhance the colors, you can make it as realistic as possible. A lot of people, especially me, when we shoot pictures in weddings, you're not blessed with the best light, right? I mean, you might have seen, those ridiculously bright lights, or the halls will be very dimly lit, or most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, it'll be terrible. So you have to fix the white balance, you have to fix the exposure in post processing, you have to do a lot of things to make it look like how you would have seen, the picture. So that's one. And especially when you shoot outdoors, where the dynamic range is crazy, in the sense you have bright skies, and like there are things in the shadow, like foreground, and like a person is standing and he's got shadows on the face, and if they're harsh and things like that, you have a crazy dynamic range there. So if we can pull out the details and make it look as realistic as possible, oh, you'll love that picture. So let's look into that. Quickly, I mean, I asked a couple of people to share some of the pictures, and I'm really happy that some people have enthusiastically uploaded some of the photos. I'm guessing most of them are travel photos. Let's look into them more detailed, and I think you'll have fun. The reason I like Lightroom is because it's just amazing. I mean, it's so specific to photo editing, and whereas Photoshop you could do a lot of DTP work, but Lightroom is focused at photography. So okay, so let's do this. I'm going to import the photos that people have uploaded. Thank you so much, guys. All right, let's see where it is. Photos for the workshop. Yep. Okay, by the way, I haven't seen these pictures, so I'll be. Whoa, cool. Yeah, so some pictures uploaded by Sriranga. He was my client. Vipin and Rachel. Oh, cool. Okay, these pictures must be from her recent Italy trip. So if you notice, there are a few pictures shot and shared in JPEG. Some of them are in NEF. NEF is a Nikon raw image. These are JPEG again. Let me import these pictures first. Alright, it's importing. Let me show you something really cool. So I've set this setting when you import pictures. You see this? You can actually give a logical title and it actually picks up the camera model and when it was taken, and this is the original file name. So it appends all of that to the file name when it imports. So immediately I'd know which camera it was shot on and things like that. If it's shot on multiple cameras, it helps a lot. So let's look at these pictures. All right, let's quickly shortlist the ones which we'd want to use in this workshop. All right. Okay. Okay. Here's the first picture. We are in the develop module, as you can see. Well, all the settings are 0. So first thing, from a composition perspective, I know it was like a split-second picture, uh, but this head is kind of messing with it, right? It's beautiful. I mean, shallow depth of field. You can see the bokeh at the back. Let's crop it. Typically, how I would have done it, right? Yup. So that guy's cropped, and if you can see the grid, probably keep it at the top intersection of the two lines in the grid. Probably what I would want to do is, since the tail is cut off in the photo, I'll probably do a close crop so it looks like it was zoomed in. So let's look at the EXIF data here. 1 by 160, good. F 1.8, I would have probably chosen F 2.8, so that at least the entire subject is in focus. Oh, here the subject is a monkey, so the monkey would have been completely in focus, and still you would have got that separation from the background. ISO 200 is good, but there's a lot of noise. I'm assuming it's because it's a EOS Rebel T2i. First thing I would do is probably bump up the exposure a little to make it look a little natural. Contrast, not so much. So this is where I was saying about the dynamic range. What I can actually do is I would want to pull out some of the shadow here. So let me bump it up a bit. That's good. Highlights, I think it's fine. I don't need to touch that. I generally would play around with blacks if there is a portion which is actually black, with hair or something like that. But here there's nothing like that. Clarity, I wouldn't touch it. Vibrance, I wouldn't touch it. Saturation, not much. Uh, you know, I would typically go directly to the sharpening tool. Oh, here, this is the most awesome thing, right? You see that there's a lot of noise here because one, it's JPEG, and two, it's because not a professional camera or a full frame sensor. So uh, let's sharpen it a bit to bring out the details. Let's see, radius, 2. I use masking a lot. You'll know what exactly you're masking, what exactly you want to sharpen in the picture. So if you press the Alt button on your keyboard and start moving this, you'll know you're basically telling the software not to sharpen everything in the picture. I just want the edges and things like that to be sharpened, right? You can see the difference immediately. Let me disable that. Can you see the details like the mouth, the eyes, the ear? It's getting sharpened. This is without, this is with. Very marginal, but still makes a difference when you look at it from far. So this is another awesome tool in Lightroom. If you had to do exactly the same thing in Photoshop, it was pretty difficult initially, but now they have something called the camera raw tool, which you can actually do pretty much what you do on Lightroom. Noise reduction. So don't do too much of noise reduction. If you add, like, for example, 40 in luminance, it will reduce a lot of noise. You can see that. uh, Let me enable and disable this, you'll know. Alright, so this is without, this is with. It's a lot more softer and things like that. So what I would typically do is not uh, over reduce the noise and stuff like that. It will make the image way too soft. Let's look at this image before and after. Yeah, so this was how the photo was, and this is after. This looks a lot more realistic. I mean, we're talking about tones on a monkey, but yeah, you can see the skin tones and things like that. Lucky monkey. Alright, so let's move on to the next image. This is shot in RAW. Yay. Okay, let's go here. How's the white balance? It looks fine. Now, if you actually look at the exposure, it's sunny. I know the sun is somewhere here because there's a lens flare, and the highlights on the people you can make out, right? Uh, let's see what we can do here. Okay, you see a lot of the sky, and it's pretty white, totally blown out. Um, if we'll try if we can pull out some details here, and probably remove this lens flare, or we could leave it. That's cool. I still like the details on this statue, so let's try to do something about it. All right, first let's see how it looks with reduced exposure. Okay, this looks pretty natural. Ooh, I can see some sky, some kind of clouds over there. Awesome. Okay, let's reduce the highlights a little. You can immediately make out that, you can make out the clouds and things like that in the sky. Next, since I've reduced the exposure by -1, uh, some of the dark areas would have become darker. So, we'll have to probably pull out those details. Let's try with 35. Okay, it's too much. Can you see the difference? So this was how the image was, and this is how it is right now, and we've hardly done anything. You see a little haze here, right? Let's see what we can do. Typically, if you just run clarity, you can do that, but then this is like a shortcut. I don't like to do that. It kind of sharpens some things, and adds masking to some places where I don't want it to add masking. So bump up the vibrance. Over here you can always bump up the saturation. I guess 25 is too much. The trees look oversaturated. Look at the difference, right? And now let's try the sharpen tool. Let's see which part actually needs sharpening. Oh, if you actually look at this, it was shot at 1 by 500th of a second and f8.0 and ISO 500. Then we should have a good depth of field, but I don't know where it's focused. I think it's slightly out of focus, the entire image. Yeah, I think it's focused at these statues, and after that it's pretty much hidden in the depth of field. This has a little bit of chromatic aberration. If you actually look at the image, the edges are slightly bluish green. That's probably because of the optics on the lens. Let's do one thing. Lightroom has, oh, awesome. Okay, so it was shot on a Tamron 2470, and it's trying to fix all the lens distortion at the same time, vignetting, and yeah. remove. Let's see. Wow, there you go. So this is before and after. How cool is that? There you go. You can see the difference. Huge difference, right? Let's look at the next image. It's a beautiful picture. People and the shadows, and leads to that. First thing I would do here is straighten the image, tilted horizon, right? Yeah, I think just about that. Yep. Let's reduce the exposure a little. Yep, looks good. Okay. Reduce the highlights. So when I say highlights, it's all the bright blown out areas, right? So let's see what it does. The white balance here, I think the white balance is slightly off. I would probably make it a little warmer. Yeah, awesome. And shadows are perfectly fine. Since there's so many colors, I'd bump up the vibrance and saturation probably a little. Yep. The whole reason I'm bumping up saturations is because there's reds and oranges, greens, and this beautiful typical European roofs, which are the jade colored ones. You can make out a little haze all around, right? You can always bump up the contrast a bit by, can you see what it did? This removes the haze from the image, right? You can either do that, or you can just go here and bump up the contrast to like 25 or something like that. The barrel distortion is fixed, and some of the vignetting is fixed. If you see the corners of the image, especially the bottom corners, I generally put luminance to 10 in case I'm printing it, because in print the noise gets pretty exaggerated. Wow, D800, no wonder. Looks beautiful. I mean, there are a lot of things you can actually do. In the new Lightroom, there's something called a dehaze tool. If you scroll completely down and go to the effects section, saw the difference. But basically what it's doing is just bumping up the contrast and playing around with the clarity and things like that. Let's see the before and after. There you go. So that's without dehaze. I've disabled it and fixed all the lens corrections and all that. Sharpened it. Medium contrast on the tone curve. So basically what you're seeing here is, you see the histogram at the back, right? What it's saying is, these are the black and this is the white. So this is the shadow and this is the highlight area. It's basically saying there's a lot of data in the highlight area and not much in the shadow area, and it's pretty well metered. So it's a good image. What I'm doing here is, pulling down the shadows, make it darker, and the highlights a little bit brighter. Oh, this is a beautiful image. I wish this tip was not cut off, but looks like a face, right? Eyes, nose, and a mouth, and it's amazing. I mean, the reflection. Oh, what a beautiful picture. All right, let's see what we can do to this image. First thing, well, the image looks beautiful anyway. Probably pull out some details here of that man. Make it a little warmer because the water has the white balance is slightly inconsistent in places. So let's see what we can do. Oh, it's a JPEG. All right, so immediately you can make out you can't do much. Make that, yeah, much better. Okay. See the difference? Highlights. Okay, let's reduce it to probably 50 and pull out the details in the shadow. Make that 75. Ooh, nice. Okay, and I don't think you have to touch vibrancy or anything. Alright, let's see before and after. I didn't do much here. Again, Didn't touch most of the things. I just did chromatic aberration. I don't think it made any difference. Sharpened the image, didn't touch any of this. Okay, highlights and shadows just to fix the dynamic range, and medium contrast on the tone curve. So that's before and after. If you can make out the difference, it's slightly warmer. Yeah, I can make out the huge difference here, right? It's so much more sharper, the ripples and the ripples formed by the drops. It's beautiful. It's a lovely, lovely image. It's truly an award-winning image. Good stuff, Rachel. Okay, the last image. All right. Okay, this is perfect. I mean, all the things that we've tried out in the first few images, I guess will make a lot of difference here. I would just probably straighten this statue. Yep, like beautiful composition. Reduce the highlights. Bump up the shadows just to get that dynamic range. Ooh, looks nice. Bump up the temperature a little just to bring out the colors. If you noticed, you know, this wreath and the colors here just improved. Bump up the vibrance, increase the saturation. Probably what we can do is increase the sharpness. Let's see. Ooh, I can make out the difference already. Without sharpening, you can make out the wreath is a bit soft. With sharpening. Okay, so I want to get rid of this lamp. Let's see if we can crop it. Is this necessary? Probably not. The colors are, you know, messing around. Okay, so that's gone. Next, I'm gonna move that here. Yep, lovely. Looks nice. Let's pull out the shadows. Ooh, nice. Yep. So let's see the before and after. I mean, yep, look at that. Huge difference, right? The shadow details. Highlights, I've made it -100 because, you know, this guy, I wanted the details to be shown. And shadows at 75 because I wanted to see more of the statue. Let's see what difference it makes. I'm going to switch it off. Yeah, it's making the image a little bit contrasty. The right amount actually. Love the way it looks. Alright, so we're done with the basics of editing in Lightroom. If you noticed, I didn't use any of these filter presets, but honestly for me what matters are these, you know, the basic functions, which is the white balance, exposure, you know, highlights and shadows most of the time. Alright, thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to this channel. I'll be posting a lot more videos. Thank you so much for sharing these pictures. In the comments below, share what you would want to see in the next video. I'd be more than happy to share my thoughts and what I've learned, you know, in the last 10 years. Alright, talk to you soon. Bye bye.